Good evening. It is July 16th, 2024, and the time is 6 p.m. I'd like to convene this meeting of the Hingham Select Board. This meeting is being held in person and remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 and all other applicable laws temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the Town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. Is there anyone else recording this meeting? Seeing none, I will note for the record that participating this evening are Bill Ramsey remotely, myself, Joe Fisher, and Liz Klein is unavailable for this evening. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you are willing and able, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes from July 2nd, 2024. Bill, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'll take a
I
motion.
make a motion to approve the minutes dated July 2nd, 2024.
Second, roll call vote. Bill?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Next is probably one of the most important items on our agenda. We have visiting with us from the Plymouth County Commissioners American Rescue Plan check presentation, Jared Valenzola. Please come up. If you wanted to make a statement, that would be awesome.
It's a pleasure to be back here, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I am Jared Valenzola, Plymouth County Commissioner and Chair. Before I forget, I do want to just extend the regrets of Commissioner Wright and Commissioner Hanley. They are unable to be here this evening, as well as Treasurer O'Brien. We were here recently, and it's always great to be back in Hingham, awarding about $46,000 for a study for the MWRA water. So certainly that has become an issue not only in Hingham, but of course across the South Shore and across the region, and we're seeing a lot of ARPA funds being used for this purpose, and it's always the highest and best use for one-time expenditures to use these one-time monies. As this program has worn on, it's actually hard to believe we're 2.5 years into it. The program does end December 31st of this year. We have to have the money committed, and then of course we have to have it spent by December 31st of 2026. So we've asked all the communities in the county to inform us by September 30th of their intent with their remaining funds. Some communities have already met their caps. We've made a commitment that we're not going to return a single penny to the federal government, so whatever communities don't meet their caps, we will be pivoting and reallocating that to the communities that have that need. We do want to extend, again, our gratitude to Tom, to Michelle, and the entire staff here at the Town of Hingham. This program can't succeed without the participation of our member communities, and we've been grateful for that partnership, grateful to be able to have that collaboration. Our constituents are your constituents, and your constituents are our constituents. We answer to the same people, and we're available and we're accessible. One of the things that we prided ourselves on, especially at the county level with these federal funds, has been the compliance component. There's been a lot of instances across the Commonwealth and across the country where folks have taken these funds, they spent it, and then it's come to their attention that maybe they were spent improperly. Under the CARES Act and also under ARPA now, Plymouth County has been 100% compliant with these dollars. And that has been thanks in large part to the Treasurer's Office and, of course, to your staff. As we continue on, the last thing I have to say, if there's any questions, is just a big thank you to Senator Patrick O'Connor and Representative Joe Moschino. They are both on the horn constantly to us, making sure that Hingham's applications are moving through, and as well as Congressman Lynch, who has been out and about when he can. He's certainly been very engaged with this, and we're grateful for his support. We couldn't have done it without our legislative partners, both at the state and in Congress. There was some consternation about Plymouth County managing federal funds several years ago. I believe, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, that we've proven ourselves very worthy. We've kept the administrative cost of this program at about 1%. The national average is 7 to 10. That means more money for Hingham. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure if anybody had any questions, if that's appropriate. If not, I do have the very well-traveled big check that has now a crease in the middle of it thanks to a very blustery evening at Nantasket. So that thing almost met its end at the beach in Hull. So I rescued it, but it took a little damage.
We're sure it's still a negotiable instrument.
It most certainly is.
And
It
we'll
most
do what we
certainly
can.
is.
But I do want to add our thanks to your thanks to our legislative partners, and also recognize that a number of communities like to go it alone. We feel in partnership with Plymouth County, and we really appreciate the reciprocity here that you feel for Hingham. So thank you. I have Bill Ramsey on the line. Bill, anything you wanted to add?
Just want to add to your thanks, Joe. Jared, always great to see you,
well,
especially when
sir.
you bring checks. And thank you so much for all you've done with the administrating these funds. And please feel free to come back as often as you like.
Yes.
We will. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's have the
Yes.
check presentation.
Yeah. Okay. But you can tell our frugality, it's dry erase, so we can always
Yeah, this is
change
great.
it. Oh, I like that.
How's this?
Perfect. And really, thank you. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great to see you. Thanks.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
Next item on our agenda, we're having some great items here. This is really important. A certificate of recognition for Historic Administrator Andrea Young. I mean, I've been in town government a while. You've been here longer, and you are, just personally speaking, you're one of the reasons that I wanted to continue in town government. So I really, I'm not prepared to have you leave yet. But we do have a certificate of recognition that I am going to read. Andrea Young, in recognition of your retirement. The Select Board, on behalf of the Town of Hingham, hereby takes this opportunity to congratulate you for 24 years of service as the Historical Administrator for the Town of Hingham. Since 2000, you have served our community with passion and expertise, contributing significantly to the preservation and celebration of our town's rich history. Under your stewardship, numerous historical landmarks and archives have been curated and maintained, ensuring that future generations can continue to connect with Hingham's storied past. We extend our heartfelt gratitude for your years of service and dedication to preserving the history that defines us as a community. We wish you all the best in your retirement. And this will be signed by Liz Klein, Bill Ramsey, and myself, Joe Fisher. I really didn't want to read this because I didn't want you to retire. But it is so well earned, so well deserved. I was going to say we look forward to continue to seeing you in your office, but I know you're not going to be there. Although we will do what we can to keep you involved.
I really appreciate it. That's very nice.
Bill?
May I also say that I just,
Actually, if you come up here, that way everyone who's looking online can see you. Look at that.
thank you. I wasn't planning on saying anything, but I feel like I have to.
Well, it's an historical moment, so.
Oh, yes, okay. I personally am not historical. Not yet, anyway.
The moment is.
But I just want to say that it's really been an interesting ride until you said it was 24 years. I said, I don't know. I didn't know exactly how many. I knew it was around 20, but that's okay. Time flies, you know. But I just want to thank everybody that I've worked with over the years, because that's the only way, you know, I was able to get things done with all of the other departments, and the communication and the support from everybody was just great. And all of the volunteers that have been on the boards since I've started, they were just wonderful. And anyway, and I thank you for your support. You know, just it's been ups and downs, but mostly ups, I guess. So, and thank you to everybody, really. And Deirdre, it's nice to work with the society and partner with you on many things. So I'll look forward to doing that again. And thank you.
Thanks.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Deirdre, did you want to add anything?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say congratulations to Andrea, and to thank her for being a partner with the Hingham Historical Society. We're so fortunate in this community to live in this town with its incredible history, and for the community to love the town character and history as much as we do, to work with it every day is a gift, and a gift that I know you never took lightly and we don't take lightly. And the appreciation that I have, because I often felt we get to do the fun stuff and you got to do the hard stuff, and to have to interface with homeowners and builders and developers and try to preserve the cultural fabric that is this town was not always easy. And thank you for what it is as we anticipate celebrating the 250th anniversary of this country, to know that this town has over 130 extant houses that were here in 1776 is a large part because of the work that you've done over this last 24 years. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Ramsey?
Thank you, Joe. You know, Andrea, I'm so happy for you, for your retirement. And, you know, you and I are good friends, and I was thinking about what I was going to say tonight. And I just wanted to tell you, you have made a profound impact on our community. You have positively impacted the volunteers you've worked with, the residents that you've helped, and you've made such a tremendous impact on the way our town looks. You know, so many people come to our town who come here for the first time or not often, and they tell me, your town is absolutely beautiful. And they talk about North Street, Lincoln Street, South Street, Main Street. And our town looks the way it does, and because of the work you've done and the balance that you've struck for residents to be able to put additions on their homes and to work with their homes, yet to preserve the historical character and nature of our buildings is phenomenal. And I just wanted to tell you that thank you for all you've done, and our community is better because of you. And I wish you and Randy the best of luck in your retirement, and very much appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to make a rebuttal? Because there is no rebuttal. So really, thank you, and we will get you the signed certificate, and look forward to seeing you often in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I really appreciate it.
We move from that recognition to a certificate of recognition for the Hingham members of the BC High State Championship baseball team, none of whom are here because they're out playing baseball. So I think we should proceed with the recognition, and hopefully they'll be available tomorrow to pick it up.
Yes, they're going to come by the office tomorrow.
So I will read, we have multiple certificates. I will read one since they're all identical except for the names. The Select Board, on behalf of the town of Hingham, hereby takes this opportunity to congratulate the Hingham members of the Boston College High School baseball team on their Division I state championship win. The team had a truly spectacular season and achieved a national ranking of 39th by the National High School Baseball Coaches Association. Your hard work, dedication, and commitment to excellence on and off the field, including volunteer work with local organizations such as SNAP, reflect your exemplary qualities as a student athlete and community member. Your outstanding achievement is an inspiration to the entire Hingham community. Congratulations. And this is going to Brady Beal, Call Bohane, Brady Lane, and John Nichols. So congratulations, and please come by the Select Board office to pick up your certificates. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there? Oh, Bill, did you want to comment?
Just to say, it's achieving a state championship is a phenomenal accomplishment, and it's great to have so many kids from Hingham on the team. I know several of those young men that you mentioned, and I know that they all went up to the Hingham Youth Baseball Program and represented the town well at BC High. So, my congratulations to them and their families.
Great, thank you. Well, I think that is our last certificate of recognition for this evening. We move on to consider approval of a one-day special wine and malt beverages application submitted by Untold Brewing LLC for the Hingham High School Rowing Association Oktoberfest to be held at Hingham Harbor on Saturday, September 14th, 2024, from 4 to 8 p.m., with a rain date of Sunday, September 15th, from 4 to 8 p.m. And I think Mike Dyer, there, I was looking on the screen, but you're right here.
I'm right here.
So please tell us about it.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you very much. Once again, I'm happy to be here in front of you with in this case, another community fundraiser. This is for the Hingham High School Rowing Association. We got introduced to them through the folks at the Hingham Maritime Center.
Yes.
We're in the middle of our summer programming over there, which has been actually going very well. So thank you for the support with that. As stated, this is the intent is Saturday, September 14th. This is a 4-hour event from 4 to 8 p.m. We are using exactly the same footprint and layout that we used for last year's Hingham Harbor Fest, which was a site plan that I walked with Sergeant Jeff Kilroy. The main consideration being a point of egress or access onto the field for emergency vehicles if necessary. So we kind of shifted slightly towards the waterfront as opposed towards the Beach House restaurant area there. The evening itself is a semi-private, it's a ticketed event. It's not a general walk-in to the public, as it being a fundraiser for the HHSRA. Like all of our events, we'll have 2 points of egress that are staffed. We will be acquiring a police detail, which I spoke to Chief Jones about for the event as well too, to ensure there's on-site coverage as well as any parking or traffic considerations. And beyond that, I think over the course of the evening, the goal is roughly 150 to 200 people, but these things have a tendency to ebb and flow, so I don't suspect there would be that many people at any one time, but we'll see how it goes. We'll staff it, make sure that all the leave no trace is kind of the way that we operate, so anything that comes out gets off that evening. No trash, obviously, no anything left behind at the end of the evening, so happy to answer any questions.
I will say your reputation precedes you. It's very successful other events that you've done, and we really appreciate your involvement with and support of the town. I do note on the application, estimated attendance is 200, and I do see in the record that the police chief has no concerns from the police perspective. Tom, anything else that needs to be added?
No, there will be a police detail, but
Yes.
Chief has signed off on everything. That's right.
Bill, any questions?
No questions, Mike. Just want to compliment you, Untold, and HMC on the great events you've been holding this summer. It's wonderful to see those fundraisers going so well at the harbor. So I'm very confident this will be another successful event. So best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Any member of the public, comments or questions? Seeing none, I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the one-day special wine and malt beverages application submitted by Untold Brewing LLC for the Hingham High School Rowing Association Oktoberfest to be held at Hingham Harbor on Saturday, September 14th, 2024, from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. with a rain date of Sunday, September 15th, 2024, from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Second, roll call vote. Bill?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. It's approved.
Great.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The next item on our published agenda was a discussion of solar panels that we'll be pushing off until a future meeting. And we will move on to a discussion of the shared use path as part of the Route 3A project. I see we have J.R. Fry here. If you don't mind coming up to take the hot seat next to Michelle.
And do you have those PDFs available to share?
To put them up on the screen, that'd be great.
Yes, just the last two that we finally worked out. So, as we've continued work on the Route 3A project, there have been some changes in property ownership along the harbor that have benefited the town in the acquisition of the property at 30 Summer Street. And as such, the town has an opportunity to consider what the best location of the shared use path across that property is to the benefit of the citizens of Hingham and the surrounding area that will hopefully be using that shared use path. It also depends on the potential and varied uses that we may find a need for at 30 Summer Street. And so all of those elements certainly end up being considered in the determination of where we should locate the path. Emily and I spent a fair amount of time going back and forth, and for me, it was an opportunity to learn exactly how the planning board regulates parking, and
Wasn't that fun?
It was a learning experience, and so we came up with a couple different parking scenarios. Some of them were much more aggressive, but Emily, rightfully cautioned me that they were probably not approvable the way that the planning board likes to proceed. So we scaled it back. In the drawing that you're seeing here, what we're showing is the shared use path coming across the frontage along Route 3A and it's a 10-foot shared use path with a 5-foot buffer to the back of curb. And so that's kind of the standard geometry when the shared use path is running directly along the road. And as you can see, we're able to fit 5 spaces reasonably well. You have open space in front of the building itself that currently is all paved, but we could transition that to grass, open space. It could, there may be some other usefulness that we can find with that space. If we go to the next, So this shows the shared use path along the rear of the property. In this configuration, again, we run right around that 5 spaces. When we did it with this orientation, I think I was a little bit short on the width, or on the aisle width behind those spaces. So in front of the planning board, we real quickly flipped them, and we were able to fit roughly the same number of spaces as for the other configuration. The full geometry is a 10-foot shared use path that runs along the rear of 30 Summer Street, and a 5-foot sidewalk that runs across the frontage. Where the shared use path, in a MassDOT project where the shared use path is removed from proximity to the right-of-way, they like to maintain a utilitarian sidewalk that people can still get from A to B on. I will say, all of this, regardless of where we put it, and regardless of what is built, the state will pay for. So there is no financial encumbrance to the town for this. It really is just what we see as the most beneficial. Running it to the rear of the property, there is also some impact to what is kind of an existing deck that we'd have to rebuild anyway at some point. But with all of that said, this was something that there was a lot of discussion within the Route 3A task force, as well as the Harbor Development Committee. Both of those committees saw a significant benefit to maintaining the walkway as close to the harbor as possible throughout the stretch where it makes the most sense to do that. If we do that, then what has been kind of a long-term vision for the harbor to have a harbor walk, we will have gotten the state to pay for roughly 700 feet of our harbor walk. So that's an added side benefit there. And yes, both the Route 3 Task Force and the Harbor Development Committee were in favor of having it closer to the water. It also reduces the number of conflicts that would be introduced to pedestrians and cyclists that are using it, as the further back from the roadway they are, there's more space for vehicles that are entering driveways to get off the roadway and then safely consider whether they can safely proceed without impacting the users of the shared use path. One other thing that I didn't mention, but is a significant safety improvement in both scenarios, is that our intention is to close up the entirety of the existing driveway, which is roughly, I want to say 60 or 70 feet currently, in front of 30 Summer. And we do have access at the existing driveway for the adjacent property, but this will remove traffic movements from the roundabout and thus will reduce the potential for accidents and other negative impacts.
Thank you. So I guess the issue that we're considering this evening is location of the shared use path with respect to 30 Summer Street. And I think you've highlighted a couple issues. I just want to make sure I understand them, that we can proceed. There are safety issues, and there are safety issues to those who are using the shared use path, whether it's walking or biking, and there's safety issues with respect to drivers along 3A. Could you comment, and you may have already covered this, but just specifically, which is beneficial, which location is more beneficial for safety for, first, the users of the path, and second, for vehicular traffic?
So I would say that in all cases, and this is the consensus of both the design engineer, GM2, as well as the town's consultant that also reviewed this, is that it is safer to have a refuge for vehicles to pull off of 3A and have a place where they can safely pause, as opposed to being in traffic where they're more likely to.
So if I can interrupt, so
Brandon?
first, with respect to the users of the path,
Ah.
let's address that, and then we'll talk about vehicles. So
With the-
specifically with respect to
With
the
respect to the
bikers or
users
the
of the
walkers,
path,
yeah.
the further away from the roadway they are, there is a greater level of both comfort and safety for all users. And that's simply because anytime when you have, this section is not supposed to be a high-speed roadway, but the vehicles have the ability to travel at higher speeds, and that can lead to jumping the curb and anything else. And the further you can get away from that condition, the safer you will be. You're also safer in that you're removed from the instant location where they're turning off of the roadway. And so the driver has time, okay, he's addressed his safety with getting off of the roadway. Now he can address the safety of the pedestrians and cyclists.
Is there any issue about the width of the roadway? If we have both a walker and a cyclist using the path at the same time, is there any greater risk in terms of interaction or collision of those users depending upon the placement?
I would say generally that for most of the users of the Harbor Walk portion of the shared use path, it really is going to be more of a passive recreational. So I wouldn't say that it is generally, I wouldn't say that there's a huge impact in either location to those two users commingling. However, the closer you are to the roadway, the more likely that I would imagine, that you would have through riders traveling at higher speeds.
Is there a difference in the width of the path depending upon whether it's behind the building or in front?
It's supposed to be maintained at 10 feet throughout.
Okay, great. Okay, so now going to vehicular traffic.
Sure, so with the vehicular traffic, what you're really trying to minimize are rear-end collisions that would occur if somebody perhaps signaled that they intended to turn, but then were unable to turn because there was a pedestrian or cyclist that were immediately within that driveway space. And so by having the drivers be able to get off the road, you are increasing the safety of all of the driving public.
Great. So I know the planning board also weighed in, and Harbor Development. Do you want to address planning board, or Emily, did you want to address, you tell me who?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so Emily made the presentation to the planning board regarding these two options. And there were a lot of great questions and a lot of good consideration that was raised. Ultimately, they also voted in concurrence with the task force and the Harbor Development Committee that the most beneficial location for the shared use path is at the rear of 30 Summer along the water.
Got it. Any discussion from Harbor Development? Mr. Reardon?
Yes, Bill Reardon, 9 Steamboat Lane, an emeritus member of the Harbor Development Committee because we have some in Maine, we have some in Alabama. No one's here tonight, so I was able to make it. We had a long talk, actually we had several long talks about this for a considerable period of time since 30 Summer came into play. And all of the points that JR has made, really come home. I'm particularly, as I listen to this and think more about if I'm turning in and there's a biker, making that, and now you're slowing, but as a driver, you're also worried about the car behind you coming out of the rotary. There isn't a lot of space between the rotary and this, so the safety aspects of it are very important to me. But more importantly, from the harbor development's perspective, JR said it, we're, one of our missions over in the master plan, even as it's not quite completed yet, is the notion of a harbor walk all the way from the Lobster Pound to Hingham Maritime. This will be that. I don't think it will ever be brick, JR, like the rest of the path, because the state isn't gonna pay for that, and I don't think from a safety perspective here, we would want that. But this is an important sector, and it also seems odd to me to have the path kind of come around the road and come out, and then immediately go back in, because the rest of the path, JR, I'm recalling, continues along the water side of the former mobile station, the earlier mobile station. So it's kind of an odd jut out of the path, and then you're back along the water the way I think the Harbor Development Committee, envisions people really enjoying this. So I haven't really heard, the good arguments that would argue for the contrary.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, any questions?
Yeah, a couple questions. JR, could you pull up the diagram again?
Yep.
So full disclosure, JR, I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
I don't know if that'll help or not.
That's better. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, the diagram's not up on the screen.
Emily's working on it,
Oh, I'm sorry, but you've
like
already
a
suggested.
champ.
All right, so just real quick, so, and I just want to be clear, you're proposing the path behind the building, correct?
Yes, yes. We've
Okay.
presented it in both locations, but the consensus of the Route 3 Task Force, the Planning Board, and Harbor Development Committee is that it be maintained behind 30 Summer Street along the water.
I think that's fantastic. I agree with all of the boards and committees' recommendation. It should be behind the building to keep people safe, all right? Because walking in that area right now, and I know that it's gonna look and feel very differently, but that sidewalk that's currently there is so close to the street, it's just dangerous. So I'm in full agreement that it should be behind the building. But no, so that leads to my second question. Having been to 30 Summer probably 50 times in this past year trying to figure out what we're gonna do down there, it's just not a lot of space between the building and the seawall. So how wide is the path gonna be as you go around 30 Summer?
Right, so the path can be maintained at 10 feet all the way behind 30 Summer. And in fact, it is kind of an interesting thing. The grade slopes away from the building foundation down some number of feet, maybe 3 feet, to the top of the seawall. And so through that section, the most likely engineering solution is actually to raise that shared use path up as a pier-supported boardwalk that runs behind 30 Summer Street. And so then, of course, it would also have all of the additional safety protections, fencing to prevent falls and things like that off of the shared use path and into the harbor.
Okay, great. So there'll be a fence of some sort there to protect people from how close it is to the wall.
Yes.
Okay, so 10 feet, is that gonna be wide enough for walkers, joggers, and bikers going in opposite directions?
I think that generally the Commonwealth is moving towards something more of a flip, where we take the 30 feet of the street and we turn that into pedestrian pathways, and the cars just get 12 feet each direction. But 10 feet is their standard shared use path. It's really typical, like if you've been on the Cape Cod Bike Trail, the Cape Cod Rail Trail, or
Yeah.
any of the other rail trail type constructions, those all run around 10 feet wide. And for, I would say 90% of the time, 95% of the time, just like roadways, it is on the underutilized side, even if it's regularly used. But there may be, and I think that it would be, some of those exciting times in Hingham, like when we're celebrating the harbor, it'll get a little crowded during those times. I think Joe might have to take his bike off the shared use path and onto the street to get around.
Well, I liked Bill Reardon's suggestion of having the path run all the way to the Lobster Pound, and if it runs, beyond that in both directions, I think success for us is to go by this path and seeing a high number of people walking on it, jogging on it, and biking on it. Like we want this to be used by a lot of people a lot of different times of day. So as long as you're telling me the 10 feet is going to accommodate a biker going one way and a jogger or walker going the other, I think this is a good plan. I need to I guess I need to space out the 10 feet to see if that's going to work. I mean, I can
It
check out a
does
couple bike
generally, but like any other, transportation corridor, we all have to be polite and considerate to one another.
I agree 100%, but if a biker's coming at a pretty high rate of speed and someone's walking a stroller the other way,
yeah.
it's not about courtesy, it's about safety.
Yeah, and that's what in that case, it would be prudent for the cyclist to slow down a little bit and just be aware of the environment that they're transiting in.
Yeah, okay. All right. I think I need to measure out 10 feet just to make sure that's the widest we can get it, 10 feet?
That's the standard width that the state installs. If you consider what we typically would install if we were doing bike lanes on a roadway is 5 feet in width. And so
okay.
this gives you that 5 feet for going both directions.
Okay. Great, okay. And my last question is probably for Emily, but, so Emily, I hope the board's gonna dedicate a big portion of this year to figuring out an appropriate use for 30 Summer that our residents want. Limiting this parcel to the 5 spots, and I get that might be all we're gonna get. Isn't that gonna limit the use because of the A3 special permit involved with parking?
Yes, Bill, it likely will, but in some ways, the 3A project is actually helping us envision a better solution for the parking that presently exists on site. It's probably only about 7 spaces that exist on the ground today, but they're fully non-compliant because there's not sufficient room behind them to maneuver out of the parking spaces without crossing into the state layout. So by closing up the curb cut along 3A, we are forced to relocate those spaces. We lose a couple, but we improve the safety and the ease of accessing those spaces.
And if the use under the zoning bylaw requires greater than 5 spaces, and I imagine almost every use probably does, with the exception of a handful, would the applicant be able to get a waiver?
Yeah, potentially an outright waiver, potentially an opportunity to share spaces in the area. We've seen those types of arrangements in the past. And just to give you a sense, if this were, let's say, a recreational use, something along those lines, we require 1 space per 3 people at peak occupancy. So what it amounts to is a limitation on the number of people that could be using the building at any given time.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much, JR. Thanks, Emily. Appreciate the presentation.
So I'm just going to follow up with a couple of Bill's questions. Like Bill, I walked the area behind 30 Summer Street, and it's difficult to see the 10 feet that you're talking about, unless the path goes right up to that porch that's right outside the property. So
Scaled off, it's 17 feet from the back of the wall to the foundation of the building. So there's 10 feet plus a little wiggle room.
does the foundation include the porch that's out there?
Not the deck.
I'm sorry, the deck.
Yeah, it does not include that. It goes to the proper foundation of the
Right.
building.
So, but from the deck to the outer wall, how much space is there?
Within that space, the way the deck is currently configured, it doesn't work. You only get like 7 feet.
Right, so I think, Bill, you and I have experienced that path where the deck is there now. And that's why I think we're both wondering, how do you get the 10 feet?
A little bit more like what we see behind Red Eye Roasters, where, you know, the pathway or deck, it's dual purpose, and runs up to the back of the building.
Are you saying that the deck would be part of the path?
They could be a
It could be
consistent level.
reconstructed,
Yeah.
reconstructed to provide that, yes.
And depending on the use of the building, it could be open to one another, or if they're not compatible uses, right? A pathway and whatever occupies the building could be separated by some sort of fence.
Yep. And I think one of the concerns that off the other side, that's a risk that is not acceptable. So we want to make sure that there'll be appropriate barriers or protections. And then with respect to the parking spots, Bill, I think what I heard in response to your question is that regardless of what we do with this project, the existing parking is non-conforming and it couldn't continue anyway. And so we were going to lose those spots no matter what. And so I don't see that the impact on the use we'll have to face regardless of what we do with respect to the shared use path.
Yep.
I do note that the chair of the 3A task force is with us. Judy Sneath, did you have any comments or suggestions you'd like to make? Good to see you, Judy.
Hi there. Thank you, Judy Sneath, 89 North Street. Thanks for this conversation. I, agree with everything everyone has said. Just 2 comments. One is the shared use path really is not intended for high-speed bike riders. One of the members of our task force is Bryce Blair, who does do more, high-speed bike riding rather than recreational. And he has confirmed that that type of user would really stay on the shoulder of the roadway, which is now expanded on both sides in both directions, and JR will tell me.
4 feet.
4 feet. So there's a 4-foot shoulder in either direction where the faster bike riders will go. So I feel pretty confident that the state's 10-foot dimension will work, because we see it in use at the harbor right now with the brick trail where people are using it without conflict, although I do expect that there'll be a lot more people there. And the second thing is that there is space to the east of that building for outdoor enjoyment. And maybe the thing to do is to look at that building and consider that the deck will be smaller, but that there will be a lot more space to the east of that building for people to enjoy, people who are using the building to be outside. So those are my 2 comments, and glad to answer any other questions, but it seems like you've covered everything.
Judy, when you say to the east, is that towards the Rotary?
Yes.
Towards the Rotary,
Okay.
yes, because with the reconfigured Rotary, and Deirdre might know more about this because she's on our landscaping working group. Because of the new configuration of the Rotary, it's now a roundabout. We gain a lot of green space, and our landscape
Judy, we're
architect-
losing you. 1 second.
Oh, no. Are you still there?
No, it's as if, I think someone from Mars is intercepting your
No,
speech
it's,
here.
I live in downtown Hingham.
Okay, we'll work on cell service, I got it.
Okay, but Deirdre can tell you about that landscaping thing.
Okay.
So anyway, I'll jump off so that it's not annoying. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anyone else with comments or questions on this? Is that a hand raised? I can't even see from here. I don't think so. Okay, so I don't believe we have this as an item for a vote, but this discussion is incredibly important. Bill, you,
It's just that the sound system is doing something funny. You're speaking and sounding the same way that Judy did.
really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it, oh yeah, you're right.
Everything sounds normal over here.
It's in the room.
Yeah, is this better? Can you hear?
No,
it?
it's-
Oh,
it's-
it's still a little
it's
bit
these
of
mics.
feedback. Yeah.
Oh, it's the speakers.
So if he's not hearing it on there, people at home aren't
It sounds
affected.
fine going out to everybody else. It's just that in the room, the audio from the speakers isn't. Because these speakers are the original speakers, and the wiring, I don't think we touched.
So something just happened with the wiring.
So, I mean, yeah. I don't know what that could be.
Is it possible to
I can turn it
hit,
down.
yeah, turn it off and turn it back on?
I can mute it, but I don't think, I have no control over unhooking those speakers. The problem is anyone on Zoom would not.
Well, that's not muting it in the room. Yeah. I think just move away from it and, because everyone at home hears us properly.
Always a technology challenge.
Everybody at home is hearing it, it sounds perfectly fine, it's just within the room that's the
Okay. Bill, thanks for pointing that out. Okay. That was an incredibly useful and important discussion on 3A. Thank you. We are going to move now to a discussion of the FY25 letter of support for the CZM Resiliency Grant application. And JR, you are still on the hook for this.
Yes, so we just concluded a very successful grant year for the fiscal '24 CZM grant that benefited the town by paying for 75% of the cost to prepare the MIPA and ENF documents that will be submitted in support of the Harbor Resiliency Project. So we are anticipating, we're kind of grinding through some paperwork now, but we do anticipate submitting the MIPA application that was prepared under that fiscal '24 grant in the very near term, I would say within the next 3 weeks or so. Now, we are come to the fiscal '25 grant cycle, and we, recognizing that CZM likes to piggyback on projects they previously funded, we are approaching them to continue that permitting cycle. So this would allow us to begin the permitting process within Conservation Commission. It would begin the process with Army Corps of Engineers for work within the harbor, and as well as, I believe there's one more that it now escapes me. But it would encompass all of that permitting. We are also looking at doing a hydrologic study of home meadows. As part of the resiliency project, we identified a risk with respect to the tidal flows into the home meadows. And that is one pathway that flooding could occur. However, if we put a tide gate in And we can't significantly restrict the flow to the home meadows because that would be environmentally degrading to that resource. So what we would be doing is we would identify what the hydrologic need for drainage storage is within home meadows so that we could safely store sufficient quantity of runoff within that space. And then when you marry that with the low tide condition, that kind of tells you, or the high tide condition rather, that kind of tells you where we can cap flows coming into home meadows during a storm surge.
So JR, this evening, we're not evaluating the merits. We're looking simply to ensure that we get a grant that helps to fund the study.
Yes, and we're
And so-
asking for your support toward in pursuing that grant.
Right, and what is the dollar amount of the grant? Or is it, I understand it's a percentage, but do you have a,
The dollar amount of the grant is about $285,000. And it would be matched by $35,000 from the town.
I don't see any downside in pursuing that. Tom, any comments?
Nope, I can sign for grants, so I will authorize the grant application, but the letter of support from you guys is helpful with the state.
Yes. And I see a prepared letter of support, which I have read and would fully endorse. Bill, do you have any comments or questions?
I agree with your comments. I don't see any downside to it,
Yep,
and
okay.
more grant money we can get for the harbor, the better.
So, Bill, I would, or any public comments on the CZM letter of support? Seeing none, Bill, I'll accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize the select board chair to submit a letter of support for the FY25 CZM Coastal Resiliency Grant application.
Second, roll call vote. Bill?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. It passes. Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is a discussion and potential vote for the select board to delegate authority to sign warrants to the town administrator pursuant to Section 2C of Chapter 263 of the Acts of 2016. Tom, if you can explain us first what it means to sign a warrant, and then what would this specific action do?
Sure, so currently the select board has authorized the sitting chair to sign payroll warrants on a weekly basis. It's a cumbersome process. It takes the chair, who is not in the building all the time, a fair amount of time and effort to sign these warrants. The idea here would be that the board, instead of authorizing the chair to do that, you authorize me to do that. I'm here, I'm in the office all day. I got no problem signing these documents, and if anything, we've spoken with John Coughlin, our town council, and he has said that the authority does lie within your purview to authorize me to do these, to do this work, and I am happy to take it on. I will note that John put together, I believe, a vote that would allow this to happen while accepting the fact that when I come across a problem that I'm uncomfortable with or otherwise, I can bring it to the board can then can sign it as well.
Which is interesting because it sort of flips the roles right now. As I review the warrants, if I have a question, I'll bring them to you.
That's right.
And now this makes it more efficient. At least it keeps us both involved, and to the extent that there are any issues, both of us will pay our attention to this.
That's exactly right.
Bill, any questions?
Well, during my year as chair, I signed these things after every meeting, and it took me a long time. So I'm not sure if I should cut you a break or not, Joe, but I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt with my support tonight.
Really an efficiency question.
Yes. Any member of the public with comments or questions? Hearing none, Bill, I will take a motion.
All right, it's a long one, so be ready. I'll make a motion that the select board pursuant to section 2C of chapter 263 of the Acts of 2016 hereby delegates to and authorizes the town administrator or the assistant town administrator for finance in his absence to, one, review the warrants for the payment of bills, payrolls of the town. Two, sign those warrants that the town administrator finds acceptable. Three, review with the select board chair those warrants that were not identified as acceptable. And four, sign the remaining warrants that the town administrator now finds acceptable following the town administrator's review with the select board chair. Nothing in this vote shall divest the select board or its designated member of the authority to review and sign warrants under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 52.
Second, roll call vote. Bill?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. It passes. Thank you for indulging us on that, Bill. The next item on our agenda is appointments and reappointments, and I've not had a chance to go through these, so I'm going to defer this to our next meeting. Next, we have public comment for items not on the agenda. Any member of the public with comments or questions? Seeing none, we move to town administrator and select board reports. Art?
Nothing this evening.
Joe?
Nothing, thank you.
Tom?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Did you review any?
Did not,
Okay,
thank you. No, I did not.
great. Bill?
The only thing I was gonna say tonight, Joe, is that I do want to encourage residents to avail themselves of our cooling centers. You know, we are in the midst of a very hot summer. When the temperatures do get high and dangerous, the town does offer cooling centers for those residents who need them. So folks who do need to avail themselves of those facilities, please feel free to do so. Reach out to our office with questions. We are glad to assist. That's all I've got.
So that's a really good point. What are the locations of our centers? Michelle?
There are two main ones this time, so it's Hingham Public Library, which tomorrow will be open from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then the Hingham Center for Active Living in this building open from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m.
And that they are open on which days?
They're open, Hingham Public Library, they're both open Monday through Thursday. The heat is supposed to break the evening of Wednesday night.
Yes. Okay, I have nothing further, and I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second, roll call vote. Bill?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. We are adjourned. Thank you.